among the most commonly quoted. As we've said, the passion is palpable and energy throughout from all the panelists truly dynamic. We hope you also caught the second sustainability pitch sessions earlier today too. And congratulations to all those who participated, to Moroccan Oil and France for achieving the 4-star travel retail sustainability trailblazer status, and of course to Pure Essential for achieving the 5-star travel retail sustainability hero status. These were 3 further examples of some really fantastic initiatives. The judges' comments have all been really encouraging, so congratulations to all 3 companies. If you did watch those sessions, you'll also have seen and heard about the amazing partners who have supported this event and made it possible for us to bring all these webinars and networking opportunities to you at no cost. We'd like to take a few moments to thank all of these companies who have made this event possible, as we're doing in each session, because they truly deserve it. So our sincere thanks go to Altia, Arianta International, Beam Suntory, Brown Forman, Coty, Dufree, Fras, Garlin, Join the Pipe, Chris Shop, Lego, L'Occitane en Provence, L'Oréal Travel Retail, Molton Brown, Mondelez International, Moroccan Oil, Nestle, Pure Essential, Ritter Sport, and Silent Pool Gin. Thanks to all of you for your support. So before I hand over to Luke, just a few housekeeping notes. You should be familiar by now with the event platform, but please do visit our event partners' sustainability networking hubs, where you can discover the various sustainable investments from a number of airports, retailers, brands, social enterprises, and NGOs. You can message them or schedule appointments with them, see their videos, and download their sustainability reports and news. You can also schedule appointments with each other through the attendees tab in the top menu or via the schedule appointment button on the main My Event page. Finally, if you have any questions about any aspect of the event, please get in touch with us via our own virtual help desk hub, where our colleague Helen Chater will be able to answer any queries. Just click on the Join Virtual Meeting button there. You can see any time between 9 AM and 5 PM UK time, and you can video or audio chat with her or leave us a message and we'll get back to you. We've had lots of great questions during all the sessions so far. More than we can handle. So please do use this opportunity though to question the speakers about their sustainability achievements and plans. They are here to answer your questions too. The Q&A button is on the right-hand side of your screen. So without any further ado, I'll now hand over to Luke to introduce the session and the panelists. Over to you, Luke.
Thank you very much, Michael. Greetings to all of you joining day 2 of Travel Retail Sustainability Week, and indeed welcome back to all of you rejoining the programme. We've had some excellent sessions this morning. We've been treated to an engaging lead by example programme and the second sustainability pitch session, and congratulations once again to our latest tranche of travel retail sustainability heroes and trailblazers, Fras, Moroccan Oil and Pure Essential. As Michael mentioned, I'm Luke Barristill, acting managing editor here at TR Business. And like Michael, I'd like to reiterate my thanks and gratitude to all our session sponsors: Arianta International, Brown Forman, Coty, Guerlain, Mondelez and Nestle, and indeed to all our premium partners supporting the event this week. As a complimentary programme, as Michael mentioned, your support is critically important. We are truly grateful for that. Now, over the course of yesterday and today, we've heard from a number of influential speakers on several important sustainability initiatives focusing on the removal or replacement of plastics within supply chains. And with that in mind, we're very excited now to be able to deep dive into a dedicated session on sustainable packaging and single-use plastic alternatives in this dedicated Wrap It Up programme and session. So from biodegradables and oxo-degradables to compostables, edibles, solubles, we want to assess the merits of different solutions, single-use plastic alternatives, how instructive they are for business development and consumer recognition. We also want to discuss the costs of going green, how we can communicate effectively to end consumers the green credentials of products via packaging and associated solutions. So in order to do just that, we'll be hearing from a renowned lineup of speakers, understanding their views on what is important when considering those sustainable packaging and single-use plastic alternatives. As Michael mentioned, we want to encourage full interactivity in this session. We want to hear from all of you tuning in to watch. We want your questions, and we urge you to take full advantage of the Q&A function on the right-hand corner of your window pane. To field questions to our speakers, we'll try to get through as many of those as possible. So for this session, we've got 7 speakers, and I'd like to kick things off by getting them to introduce themselves. So Julia Koskela, let's begin with yourself.
Thank you, Luke. Glad to be here. Julia Koskela from Systemic. We are a mission-driven company focused on driving systemic change in the energy sector, the materials and packaging sector, and the land use sector. I'm here today to share the findings of our Breaking the Plastic Wave report, the result of 2 years of collaboration and research drawing the solution pathway to reduce ocean plastic leakage by over 80% in the next 20 years. Looking forward to speaking about that.
Thank you, Julia. Valerie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Valerie Taubois. I'm a consultant in marketing and CSR, but I'm also in charge of teaching sustainable marketing at HEC. And I'm here today for a very short introduction with a few drawings to keep in mind a few stakes important before deciding on which solution for the plastic, and to support Chenji, who is one of my students who worked on a database. She will talk about it.
Thanks, Valerie. We're really excited to hear more about that database. Chenji, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, my pleasure. So my name is Chen Ji. I'm a master's student studying in HEC Paris. And for the last 2 months, I've been working on a database of sustainable suppliers for the alternatives of SUPs with the help of Michael and Valerie.
Thank you very much, Chenji. Graham Stewart. Graham, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi. Great to be here. I'm Graham Stewart, the CEO of EnviroPoint, which provide OXO biodegradable solutions to the industry, not to be confused with OXO degradable, which I'm looking forward to speaking throughout the event. And I'm also the retail director for airport services company Luggage Point. Thank you.
Thanks, Graham. Corinne.
Hi, everyone. I'm Corinne Fugé-Garel. I'm working for L'Occitane for 6 years, and I'm in charge of packaging innovation for L'Occitane. I'm very happy to be here with you today to talk about our commitments, which is one of our 3 main commitments, reducing waste, and specifically maybe focusing on how we think we're gonna reduce packaging at the beginning of the tap in order to have less waste on our shelves.
Thank you, Corinne. Santiago.
Hi, everyone. I'm Santiago Navarro, CEO and co-founder of Garçon Wines. We exist to make the wine industry more sustainable. We do that through cutting carbon footprint and packaging. I'm here to share learnings from the wine industry, because wine, like travel, is truly global. And through that, we have to realize the sort of shapes we use, the materials we use, and how we design a product to be recyclable post-use. One of the topics I'd like to touch on is the difference between single-use plastics and single-use packaging. I believe in travel we'll have a lot of single-use packaging, as it will travel a great distance from purchase to consumption. But single-use plastics, I guess, are a problem, and we should be using those that are recyclable in large parts of the world. But I'm looking to sharing more, and thank you for having me, and over to you.
Thanks, Santiago. Keen to pick up on some of those points. And last but by no means least, Christian.
Hi, everybody. My name is Christian. I'm the co-founder of Solubag. Solubag is a company that started 5 years ago trying to find a solution, a disrupting solution to the single-use plastic. We are one of the solutions that could help to make this happen, because there is, I think so, that there's nobody that could be able to push or to make this the one solution. We need to work, everybody needs to work together, and we need to put more disrupting solution in the markets. That's all.
Thank you very much, Christian. Okay, so to begin the session, it's important now to kind of set the scene a little bit. You know, this week, and certainly in the past, we've heard that unless drastic action is taken, the world's oceans could contain more plastic than fish by weight in 2015. It's a sizable challenge. David Katz, our keynote speaker, yesterday alluded to this, to the very importance of turning off the tap and addressing the problem of plastic wastage. Julia at Systemic, together with the Pew Charitable Trust, have released a report, Breaking the Plastic Wave, which suggests that without immediate action, the annual flow of plastic into the oceans could nearly triple by 2040. So to start us off, Julia, I'd like to ask you to share some of the findings from that report.
Very happy to do so. Thank you so much for the introduction, Luke. Let me get screen sharing kicked off. So really delighted to be here today and set the scene. As I said, this is the result of a 2-year initiative working with the Pew Charitable Trusts and Systemic and a global panel of academics, businesses, collaborators feeding into Breaking the Plastic Wave. The report, let's be honest, you know, what drove us to spend 2 years researching the tough topic of solutions to single-use plastic. It's really images like this. We work, we have a team based in Indonesia. This is our daily sites working there. It's oceans and beaches full of plastic, children playing here on the beach, who may not have seen the sand underneath in their lifetimes. So a quick wake-up call that, you know, this challenge is going nowhere fast and is really serious and a real concern to all of our traveling customers and global awareness now on this topic. So we published Breaking the Plastic Wave about 6 months ago now. We also had accompanying peer-reviewed papers. This is all science-based evidence. And we were on the cover of Science, which was a great kind of recognition for our work we're really pleased for. The report really asks 3 critical questions. Where are we headed in the ocean plastics challenge and the challenge of single-use plastics generally? What's the way out? Can we solve it in the next 10 to 20 years? And where do we start? And I'll go through all of those today to give our recommendations and backdrop for single-use plastics. So where are we headed? The business as usual picture is gruesome. You may have seen some of the news headlines we made. Plastic stock in the ocean is set to quadruple in the next 20 years if we don't act fast. Plastic annual flows to the ocean are going to triple, and plastic waste generation is going to double. We already heard some of our panelists speaking about the importance of reducing plastic waste at source before it even becomes waste. We will talk about that throughout today's sharing. And what about, you know, all of the commitments that have been made so far? There's a lot of awesome work being done by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, the global commitment, many announcements being made by policymakers. Our calculations suggest those only reduce ocean plastic flows annually by 7% in the next 20 years. So really not going far enough. We need a lot more change. And there's a real risk for business here. If we don't change, we are risking 3 times as much money that would need to be spent on cleaning up the problem and managing waste that is currently not getting collected in many geographies. That's 3 times as much profits as the entire plastic production industry from producing this waste in the first place. So we have a real impetus to act. The good news is we did find solutions within today's known technologies, and there's a picture of the way out that emerged from Breaking the Plastic Wave. There are no silver bullets is a key fact that came out of the report. If we look at the different scenarios that we ran to say, how can we solve this challenge? We looked at business as usual. That's a quadrupling of plastic stock in the ocean by 2040. We looked at current commitments that reduces 7% of annual flows. Then we chose a scenario that looks at well, why don't we keep all the plastic packaging we want, but make it more recyclable and recycle everything as much as we possibly can. It's great to recycle, but we now have evidence that that is not going to be enough. It will not decrease on today's plastic ocean flows annually. It will only flatten the curve. We also looked at what happens if you ban plastics and get out of plastic packaging as much as you can. Even that would only flatten the curve and not get us to where we need to be. Similarly, if we just collect as much plastic as possible and incinerate it, not great for the climate and not great for ocean plastic either. So what we found is you need to combine all of today's known technologies and work on all of them fast and really ambitiously to create a system change scenario that would really change the picture and solve the problem by 2040. Rolling out all known technologies like that will reduce 80% of ocean plastic leakage annually by 2040. We think it's a great result. The remaining 20% we still want to solve, but that will require new innovations. The 80% can be solved with known technologies of today. So what does the system change scenario look like? What does industry need to really push forward and where do we need to get to? Well, our analysis suggests we'll always have some mismanaged waste. Let's try to drive that down as quickly as we can. After that, to really roll out the solution, we found 1/3 of plastics needs to be reduced. And that's either through direct elimination of avoidable packages. So you can think through your portfolio that we use in airports, etc., and what could consider unnecessary packaging. What can we get rid of? What can we reduce? Lightweight, etc. And what can we move to reuse models? Next, we found 1/6 of plastic materials could change to substitute materials. We limited this to sensible substitutes that have good recyclability and have good kind of end-of-life outcomes. We'll talk more about that. We focused in on paper and compostable products. They also have comparable greenhouse gas emissions or sometimes emissions savings compared to plastic, which is why we focused on that. We didn't focus on glass and metal as the emission savings can sometimes go the other way. And then finally, we need to recycle a lot more. This is tripling the capacity of recycling in the next 20 years. But to do that, we need all the packaging to be made to be 100% recyclable, as well as changing our infrastructure. The rest gets collected. Sadly, we believe we'll still need some landfill incineration by 2040, but a much larger focus on recycling. There's more good news. If you turn this chart around and look at these solutions in terms of cost, the biggest chunk, that 1/3 that comes from reduction and reuse, offers the best cost savings for industry. So there's really opportunities for us all to make efficiencies and save costs here. Some of the other solutions, like switching to new material types, can come with a higher cost to companies, but we hope that will come down over time. So that was some of the technical findings of how we need to drive forward this system change solution. What does it really mean for you as individual companies and travel businesses looking at your packaging today? What decisions should you be making? Where to start? So the first thing to point out is that not all plastics are made equal. Some leak into the ocean at much higher proportions, and that could be a good place to start focusing in on your strategy. So we know that flexible and multi-material items are by far the ones that are most likely to leak into the environment and pollute. They're lightweight, they'll blow around in the wind, they are not recyclable, they won't get picked up by waste pickers, and they can blow off of rubbish trucks. Really difficult to deal with. We need to find recyclable or reduce and reuse solutions for these types of items. And we also know that a lot of the pollution comes from low and middle income countries. So focusing on making sure that all of the waste you produce that is disposed in those countries is disposed of sensibly, collected well, etc., and work with local governments to make sure that happens, really important. Another key finding when we think about where to start is no matter what type of packaging is in your portfolio or what type of single-use plastics, there are solutions available. So all of these typical items that you might recognize from your portfolios, we ran a detailed analysis speaking to industry experts. We ran a detailed kind of scoring framework to make sure that these are all feasible changes within known technologies. And most of these items we can get 50% reduced or substituted to new materials in the next 10 to 20 years, even with realistic rates of how fast globally we can create change. So your company can go even faster than these rates if you're a first mover. These are kind of global averages of where we believe packages could end up. So you can see plastic films, a lot of that can be reduced. Some of it can switch to paper or compostable film, and we need to drive up recycling rates. For sachets and multi-materials, again, a big focus on specifically reuse models. And then carrier bags, we'll talk about in more detail. Plastic bottles, a big one. There are lots of great solutions out there to reduce and reuse plastic bottles. Let's start diving into the specifics. And we gave this a specific view of how this would affect you as travel companies working in travel retail. So let's focus in on 3 common items and what can be done about them. So for drink, and the important thing to say here is before you look just at recycling solutions, do look at eliminating where you can and moving to reuse where you can. Those will always offer the better cost savings, the really exciting experience for customers, and they all want to see us reducing waste in the first place, and focusing on plastic elimination before recycling. So in the drinks bottle space, what that means is honing in on reuse, refill, and return systems. We know that water bottles sell a huge volume in airports, and there's increasingly great infrastructure being rolled out in partnership with brands to have water refill stations. Think about selling reusable water bottles that can be a memento for your brand or your airport, and really driving traffic to these water refill stations. So we're reducing that unnecessary use of single-use plastic water bottles, which nobody wants to see. There's also options to make it fancier, flavored water, drive sales, etc. You can see some of Coke's refill dispensers there. And where you can't move to refill, make sure that you have fully recyclable PET bottles so that they have good recycling rates. The second item we'll look at is coffee cups and cups. We know there's a lot of takeaway items in airports. The big one here is airports and cruise lines and other places where people are in a space for a given amount of time. It's a great place to roll out what we call closed systems for reusable packaging. So this is absolutely being rolled out when Cup Club is working with airports in London, Heathrow, and elsewhere to drive reusable cups forward with all of the coffee brands that they have in their airports. This means you pay a small deposit on your cup that gets refunded to you automatically, and you can return your cup in the airport at different refill stations, wherever you like. Really convenient, and avoids all of that unnecessary single-use plastic waste. If you want to look at a full portfolio of solutions, there's 12 winners of the Next Gen Cup Challenge that are really worth checking out. They span 3 different reusable cup services, so you can choose which works best for you, and 9 new material solutions, including ones that are more recyclable than today. As we know that plastic coating on paper cups makes a lot of cups really hard to recycle, non-recyclable, so we need to drive solutions there. Final item I wanted to zoom in on is plastic bag use in airport. Again, I will drive you towards a competition that highlighted best-in-class solutions for plastic bags. There were 9 winners of the Beyond the Bag Challenge, finished really recently. So check those out. There's 6 different reuse and return systems, including awesome apps where you can drive customer loyalty and really engage with people that are in your travel retail center, give them customer rewards, incentivize reuse, give them information, and ways to lend and take back and encourage reusable plastic bags. Then there are also some material innovations to look at for bags. A lot of people ask about substitute materials. We understand that it's hard to reduce unnecessary packaging, and using reusable packaging is not the way things are currently done. We feel really confident that plastic elimination and reuse is going to grow really fast in the next 10 years. And we encourage you all to be on the front end of that curve and do these pilots, get these models rolled out. But in the meantime, we know there's a lot of interest in just doing a one-to-one switch from, I'm using single-use plastic today, let me use single-use paper instead. That comes with all sorts of environmental and cost trade-offs, but thought we could still give you some tips there, as substitutes can play a role where you can't reduce and reuse. So switching to more recyclable paper, that means paper that doesn't have crazy coatings on it, can be a great solution for things like plastic films, especially for non-food items. You can see plastic trays around cookies, vegetables, etc. can all be moved to paper. And even things like polystyrene trays can switch to paper alternatives that can be more recyclable and often come with a lower plastic footprint. Then we also, the Breaking the Plastic Wave report pushes out certified compostable products. So this means items that have achieved international standards for compostability. There's some great certification standards out there like EN standards and Austria TUV standards and some regional ones as well. We're really looking for that compostable certification. So we are pushing for that because it's not okay to litter plastic items. It never will be. And we don't want to encourage customers for plastic to end up in the environment. Composting is a great solution to capture items that can't be made recyclable, but still deliver value, still make them a circular economy. So you capture these packages at end of life, you return them to composting, they return to soil. That's a really valuable resource cycle that is great to push. So that can apply to things like bags. There are compostable bag solutions out there. There are edible and dissolvable soup sachets and compostable snack wrappers. There's compostable alternatives to polystyrene packaging that we know is not recyclable. And you can even look at local materials like banana leaves that will be easily compostable locally. And of course, things like bamboo cutlery. So those are a few things we would point to that are quick wins, if you like, in the substitute area, and always really important to make sure you find a circular end-of-life solution for that. So somewhere they're going to be recycled or composted, and look for those certifications. Finally, for end-of-life systems, when you're switching with plastic, or when you're sticking with plastic, or if you're moving to compostables, it's super important to make sure that your packaging will actually be collected, separated at source, and driven to a circular end-of-life destination. So work with your airports, work with your cruise ships, all of these locations to drive forward separate recycling collection and getting those materials recycled in practice, and minimizing landfill, but that still will need to be collected, and driving forward compostable bins and collection of food waste and compostable packaging together. Again, we're excited about travel retail areas as places where there's a closed system. You have customers' attention all in one place. You have a single waste management system where all of the waste that you, for example, use in takeaway products is basically being disposed of in the airport. So people can get rid of their single-use packaging and their food waste at the same time, and you can make sure that it's getting composted, that it has a circular end-of-life system. That's definitely recommended for compostables. It's much harder to put compostable packages out into the wider world because we don't have a closed system and composting rates can be quite low. Whereas in an airport, etc., you can make sure that a good percentage of compostable packaging ends up in the right place in a composting bin. So it's a great opportunity. That is what I wanted to highlight in terms of where to start, and happy to discuss more in the panel discussion. I also just wanted to leave you on a really exciting note that all of the data, insights, modeling scenarios that you've just seen are being made available for companies to use and enter your own data. This is a free tool that we've developed with support from Walmart. We've developed Plastic IQ. It brings Breaking the Plastic Wave and other methodologies to your fingertips so you can really map your plastic packaging strategy, look at these solutions, look at the cost trade-offs, look at the emissions trade-offs. It will give you lots of insights, and is launching on May 5th. So check out plastiqiq.org and join our Reuters launch event. This is a free to use tool for all companies to assess their plastic packaging. Right now, it's a tool specific to the US. So if you are based in the US, it's especially relevant to use it, but you can also check it out, and hopefully it will be going global at some point in the future. I'll stop there and look forward to discussing the rest with the panel. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Julia. Sorry. Oh, somebody's got. Okay, thanks very much, Julia. That was extremely insightful. And I look forward to putting some questions to you in a short while. I just want to share my screen because you mentioned compostables towards the end. And this is a picture taken in my garden compost. Can you all see that there? Luke, can you see that?
Yeah, I can.
So these are two lids from coffee cups where if you look closely, it says completely compostable on one of them and compostable on the other. And the cups that accompany those lids did actually compost. I checked the information, how long should these take to compost? And I was told 12 weeks. I buried them in the garden compost back in December, dug them out, not end of February, when the 12 weeks were up, but just a couple of weeks ago. The cups were actually gone and replaced by giant Australian maggots in the garden. But the lids are still there, as you can see now. That one of the two, I think it's the white one, no, it's the black one, is slightly degraded a bit more than the white one, but certainly not within the 12 weeks. So one of the key questions, and you mentioned discussing with governments, but what I didn't hear you talk about, Julia, and we'll come back to that a bit later, is the lack of and the confusion of with regards to consumers about all the communication about what to do, where to compost, how to compost. And it really is a struggle for consumers to know what they need to do with their compostable coffee cup or their recyclable paper bag, or where to dispose of that. And that's a huge barrier at the moment to becoming more sustainable. So all these coffee shops downtown, on high street, in airports, investing all this money into biodegradable, compostable, sustainable solutions. That's great, but we need to, I think there's a massive campaign that is necessary to communicate more. And we'll come back to you on that question in a bit about the lack of infrastructure for composting, currently within airports or downtown, but also the lack of consumer communication. And that's something we'll flag up in a bit.
Michael, would it be possible just to interject there?
Yeah.
A very quick line in terms of compostable product. Obviously that's being used on a home composting site. However, with the composting standards, they're all tested to industrial composting. And that's one of the big problems for trying to get that over to the consumer. So if that went to an industrial composter, it would do what it says on the tin essentially, but because it's gone to home composting, it can't get to the desired temperature.
Exactly. So if that said on the lid, to be composted industrially, yeah, it would have been clearer. But that's currently lacking in terms of information, as is the infrastructure to dispose of these down the high street or in the airport. But some really interesting insights there, Julia. Thank you very much. I'm just going to stop my screen share now, and we're going to now hear from Valerie and Chenji. And to just set the scene, TR Business partnered with HEC Paris Business School, which for those of you who don't know, or the French will know, it's the top business school in France. And anybody who comes out of the business school, Chenji's got a lot to look forward to, is basically snapped up by the employment market straight away. They're excellent education. So we partnered with HEC. And we had 3 students, Chenji, Lana, and Caroline, under the guidance of Valerie, who'll be speaking in a couple of minutes, their tutor, working painstaking task, as it was, as Chenji will attest to, on trying to source as many sustainable suppliers, from bags to bottles to cutlery, from compostables to biodegradables to edibles, so we can, as part of this event and as part of our commitment to sustainability going forward, try to connect you, the industry, with suppliers of sustainable solutions, from packaging, as I mentioned, and bags, bottles, etc. The result of that work has been a very comprehensive database of suppliers from all over the world. And what we'd like to do at TIA Business, is when we initiated the Travel Retail Sustainability Forum, is bring the industry together with these suppliers, with the solution providers, so we can make a really giant step forward in becoming more sustainable. For some companies, you've already done this research, but for a lot of companies in the industry, the smaller companies might not have the R&D facilities to source all these suppliers. So that's one of the reasons we wanted to do this, and also to help these companies connect with you throughout this week and in the future going forward. And a lot of the companies watching have been connected to you thanks to this event, thanks to the research that's done by Chenji, Lana, and Caroline. In fact, Christian from Solubag is also a result of that research. We met Christian thanks to that. So, and we'll hear from him in a short while. So I'm going to ask Valerie to just set the scene on the research, talk about the plastic journey for a traveler through an airport, and then she'll pass on to Chenji, who will explain a bit about the solution providers they've come across, and how that looks in terms of who's providing what from where in the world. Okay, so Valerie, over to you.
Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, so we had a very interesting introduction thanks to Julia, and I was really happy because it's completely consistent with what I'm going to share with you. So we have the big picture. Now let's take a look at a small picture about the consumer experience or the traveler's experience when we enter an airport, okay? Because this has to be kept in mind before designing the right solution. So we have a little traveler who just arrives at the airport. He might go to the first shop to buy newspapers, maybe a drink, maybe he'll get his luggage wrapped in single-use plastic. And then he goes to check-in, gets rid of his luggage, and then he has time to check through security. But here again, there's an addition of plastic, because he might be asked to get rid of his little plastic bottle. He might be given a plastic pouch to put some liquids in it. So it's another single-use plastic that appears here. And then after that, he might go to the duty-free, and in duty-free might buy some cosmetics with cellophane wrapped around the items. He might buy a bottle of wine, of champagne, of alcohol, and maybe chocolates. And then again, plastic bags that have to be sealed for security reasons. And eventually, and this builds up on what Julia said, a little snack with plastic cutlery, plates, cups, and again, a plastic bottle. And then he goes on a plane. Okay, so if we take a look at what are the single-use plastic waste is generating, we have quite a lot. Okay, so this was just to bear in mind what are the different steps. And I don't speak about when he comes back home and has to get rid of the plastic wrapping around his luggage. Now, when we consider plastic or the items we want to change, I fully agree with Julia when she says, first, we have to think about getting rid of single use and think about solutions. But when you think about the items, plastic bag or a bottle, what is it made of? First question is the material, okay? And the second question is, where will you get rid of it? Disposal. So made of, is it chemical? Is it virgin plastic, let's say with oil? We know that it comes from oil most of the time. Is it made of recycled plastic? Or is it made of natural raw material that bring equivalent plastic? So this is the first question to be asked. And then, what is it made of? Is it made with recycled plastic, recycled material? And is it made to be recycled? And again, Julia, you mentioned the multi-layer plastic, which are impossible to recycle. So when you have to dispose your garbage, where do you put it? Regular garbage and you don't know what becomes of it. Will it be recycled? But then it has to be organized. And obviously, we still have a lot of garbage in airports which says recycle, but we see in it a lot of things and we are not 100% sure it will be recycled. Will it be compostable? And then again, Julia, you mentioned the fact that it has to be composted. And yes, maybe it could be easy actually in airport to compost, but it has to be done. Otherwise, you lose the interest of compostable plastic. Or is it made to be edible? And then again, be sure that people understand it's edible, that it's good for their health and it's tasteful, let's say. So here we have many issues regarding communication. But whatever the material, the collector of waste has to be organized and clearly communicated. And on this, we agree, Julia. And eventually, you think about solutions to get rid of single-use plastic. Will you dispose the objects that you'll be using? Will you buy them at the airport and try to keep them? Or will you just bring it and keep it? It means that you arrive at the airport with it, right? So dispose, again, the question of what is it made of? Is it plastic, recycled plastic, or nature plastic? And where do you get rid of it? And it has to be clearly indicated. When you buy it at the airport, it might be that nice pouches with a bamboo cutlery, or it might be those, like silver cutlery that is when you're camping. It's a three-in-one. It's very useful. But the main question here, if you bring this or if you buy it at the airport, is will you clear security? Will you be allowed to get in the plane with that on board? And eventually, when you bring your own bottle, for instance, or your cutlery, you need a place to refill it, just as Julia mentioned. So these have to be kept in mind when you design a new option for your single-use plastic replacement. So we have to rethink the traveler's journey to help him, well, first check security, because you don't want to bring something that will be confiscated. We need to help him reuse, and this means where and how can he refill, and if there is a business model for the brands, it's only fair. And eventually recycle, find the right bin to put it, and be sure that they put it in the right bin. And here you have a lot of incentive for the clients and the travelers to do that. So this was just a very short presentation, as you see, to keep in mind those steps before deciding on the material. And now I will hand over to Tianji, who conducted with her teammates a very thorough research to build a database.
Thank you, Valerie. So hello, everyone. Today, I am glad to share with you a synthesis of database constituting the suppliers who produce sustainable products using plastic alternative materials across the globe. So the purpose of building this sustainable solutions and service providers database is to help raise awareness of the alternative to single-use plastics and facilitate further discussion regarding the topic of sustainability in the travel retail industry. The database is gathered together with two of my fellow students, Caroline and Lana, under the supervision and guidance of Valerie from HEC Paris and Michael from TR Business. Within 10 weeks, we gathered in total more than 1,300 entries. Although we searched to find companies all over the planet, we do not mean to be fully exhaustive of all the suppliers worldwide. We might have found more results accessible from our countries of origin, that's China, Germany, France, and Switzerland. But altogether, we built a wide database from which we draw the following conclusions. Based on the beautiful drawings shown previously by Valerie, we have summarized the possible touch points with SUPs, single-use plastics, during one's airport travel. The product category of our database, therefore, is derived from the above touch points. They are cups, water bottles, packaging, cutlery, straws, bags, baggage wraps, and cosmetics packaging. Among all the product categories, packaging has the most alternative suppliers to SUPs, in total 273 out of 1,300. When it comes to edible and compostable solutions, straw wins the first place. There are in total 15 edible solutions for straw and 71 compostable solutions. Among all the sustainable materials we found, we have highlighted the compostable and edible materials. Compostable materials are those organic materials that are able to be made into compost. For example, we found materials like seaweed, sugarcane, palm leaf, algae, sweet corn, coconut, and so on. Edible materials are materials such as seaweed, cornstarch, biscuit made from wheat, corn, multigrain flour, rice, icing sugar, and pasta. Other sustainable materials that don't belong to the compostable and edible categories are, for example, bamboo, paper, glass, PLA, ceramic, stainless steel, etc. So besides product category and product material, we also divided the database by regions. The region that has the most sustainable SUP alternative suppliers is China, accounting for 43%, followed by Europe, 33%, and the US, 10%. Here, sustainable means all sustainable materials, including the edible and compostable materials. Now we look specifically into the compostable materials. The distribution pattern is very similar. The top 3 rankings are respectively China, Europe, and the US. Last but not least, we looked at edible solutions. We discovered that Europe accounts for the highest percentage of all suppliers. Almost 70% of edible suppliers come from Europe, followed by India, 15%, and Asia-Pacific countries such as Vietnam, 8%. This is the end of the database synthesis. Hope it is inspiring for you, and feel free to ask any questions.
Thanks very much, Chenji, and look forward to talking to you a bit about that a little bit later. I just want to get Julia's feedback on that. I know, Julia, you're going to say we have to obviously do our due diligence and make sure that there's not a lot of greenwashing in that database, and that's the next mammoth task. But I just want to get your opinion on the edibles. It's not an area that is much talked about. What's your experience there? And we've seen a lot of edible cups and straws and what have you. Is that a viable solution?
Thanks. The one thing I would correct, or you might want to clarify, is not all compostable products are made of natural materials. A lot are made from fossil fuel-based plastics. So do make that clear. Maybe you're excluding fossil-based compostable products from your mapping there. Edibles, there's a lot of excitement around it. It's a fun place where you can engage with consumers and try something new and cause some good excitement and headlines. They, for me, make sense in niche applications. I love what I've seen making algae-based soup packets that dissolve in the soup as you make it in boiling water. And then you eat the algae-based packaging because it has dissolved and it gives you a bit of extra nutrition. That really makes sense for me. What else have I seen? For marathons, when you're on the go, having a little drink in a bubble of algae-based edible packaging where you just pop the whole bubble in your mouth and eat the seaweed capsule and drink the water, or can be used in bars and in festival environments, airports. Again, a really nice way to engage with customers. I've also seen it as a nice solution for straws. The nice thing about edible packaging is if you can eat it, then you can compost it, and turtle can eat it too. So it does it's kind of the highest bar, if you like, of how the least damage it will make if it does end up leaking to the environment.
Okay, thanks.
Valerie, I'd like to ask you a quick question, actually. Thanks very much for your research. to what extent, and indeed this could be a question to other panelists, is the current communication regarding the recyclability of plastics clear to consumers at airports? Particularly, we've spoken about labelling in previous sessions. Does that need to be clearer, particularly with materials like low density polyethylene, polypropylene, on pack? I mean, is it a case that we need to move beyond a simple definition of the polymers? Do we need to have something that's more visually arresting, let's say, and easily digestible to consumers?
Well, I think that if you change the packaging and it looks like another packaging, people will not have the idea to look at what is it made of. You know, they might be just noticing because it's not something important for them. Okay, they are more excited about reading their magazines or checking on the time of their plane. So reading what the component is made of might not be their priority. So if you change something that looks like before, you might need to do something more, maybe little posters in the restaurants, or even posters in billboards in the airport, and explain that we've changed a lot of things. Now, please check on the packaging where you are supposed to put it, or check, or maybe using nudge, you know, fun ways to say, are you sure your packaging cannot be eaten? Hungry, maybe you can eat your pack, something like this. I would recommend really to not wait that the consumers read the instruction or where to put, because if they are in a rush, they will just do as usual. Instead of that, if you just tell them very loudly and clear, we have changed things about the packaging. Now you have to change the way you put, where you throw it away, or it is recyclable, or you can eat it, or it can be compostable. Do something about that to clearly announce it, and not just one day. I would recommend to have a very wide campaign of communication on that, because to be sure to touch all the travelers, communication is crucial, I think, for that.
Do the other panelists have views on that communication journey and where it should begin? Perhaps I can bring in Graham to talk to us. Graham, a little bit about your OXO biodegradable solutions, and I guess the conversations you've been having with your partners in bringing that solution to the airports, AGS airports, of course, you have a partnership with.
Yeah, well, I feel I probably need to rewind slightly to advise what OXO biodegradable is, because unfortunately there's a lot of misinformation in the public domain surrounding a number of materials, not only OXO biodegradable. There's a certain amount with compostable also, and OXO biodegradable, a lot of people confuse with OXO degradable. It's very similar in name. Somebody truly should have changed the name slightly, or had a better marketing team behind them when they created it. But it's actually been around for over 20 years now. And OXO degradable is the material that essentially leaves microplastics behind in the environment, which none of us want, because smaller organisms eat that plastic, and we're just moving the problem somewhere else rather than removing it. So OXO biodegradable actually continues to bioassimilate that plastic, and it does so by attacking the molecular weight of the plastic so that it can continue to be biodegraded. And the problem that we have with this material, as I say, it's been around for so long, but there's a lot of politics behind it, and it takes a lot of explaining first. So luckily, we've had quite a good relationship with AGS over the years through our previous and current businesses, Wayhead and Luggage Point, and we opted to trial it across Aberdeen, Glasgow and Southampton, and we've also trialed it through Budapest Airport as well. And the product's been well received. It's removing the single-use plastic that's recyclable, but how often do things actually end up being recycled? The good thing about OXO biodegradable is we rely on human interaction, and human interaction is essentially what's caused the global pollution that we see in oceans and across the world. And Oxo Biodegradable helps remove that risk almost, because you know that we don't want to encourage people to throw it into the open environment naturally, but if it does end up there because of sheer laziness, then it's going to eventually bioassimilate and become a food source for the environment again. So we've had pre-COVID a lot of positive conversations with Airport Worldwide, but unfortunately COVID has truly slowed down the rollout of that, because people have considerable stocks that haven't been able to be used because of the reduction in passengers. So it's tricky, because now really is the time to take that opportunity and change your sustainable processes.
That's great. Indeed, there is a need for a variety of alternative solutions. I think it's not just a case of advocating for one, and I know that many on the panel would, I'm sure, agree with that. I'd quite like to bring in Christian at this point from Solubag. Christian's company has devised something that I'm sure many will find quite innovative. Christian, can you just give us a bit of background into the company and the product that you've created?
Thank you. Thank you. We started 5-6 years ago, working to develop some raw material to replace single-use plastic. When we start with this idea, was because our country, I'm from Chile, was one of the first countries in Latin America that banned plastic bags. And we start in the south of Chile. The first city was 10 years ago, and we know that was an impact also to the people, the poor people, when you ban plastic bag. That was really, that's what we have the environment, and we have the poor people. All poor people that use single-use plastic bag to throw their waste out. If you eliminate this plastic bag, they throw, what would happen in these cities? They throw the garbage outside the house. We are in Latin America, and we start living with that. And we start living, we have a lot of water, a lot of rivers, and we start to find one material. And what we do, we start searching materials all around the world. We pick up the material that is for the jelly caps. The jelly caps, the tiny jelly caps where you swallow and dissolve in your stomach. This capsule, this material is polyvinyl alcohol. And this polyvinyl alcohol, it's used in a lot of other products. And we start developing a new formula made of limestone or natural gas. That are our two resources to make our PVA. And what we have done, we make a new formula that works in the same machinery that right now is processing plastic materials. Because we believe that the scale to impact the market is important when you need a solution. But our company also is the things that we have to work on, and Julie said it very good, is reduce. The first thing is reduce use of plastic. Second one, reuse it. Third one, recycle. And then all these other options that will impact in benefits of what everybody's doing. But there's a big problem that we find in Latin America. We do not, when we start making research, we don't have compostable landfills or compostable facilities. If you check all Latin America, and if you put compostable product and industrial compostable product, you will need to change the landfills to make this work. And we start searching what we do, and then we find the solution, and we start working with PVA and make our own formula to impact the plastic industry. We have injection mold, we have film, and we have a replacement for the non-woven propylene materials.
And Christian, can you just describe to viewers who may not be familiar with the Solubag solution practically how it works? And indeed, is it certified?
Yes, we have certification. I can send everything what you need. I have a little present. We were in the I have a little presentation if I can share with you. It's 4 slides. It's possible.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
No problem.
It's very simple. Sorry. Here it is. Okay. That was our goal when we start. Want to eliminate single-use plastic, but we start developing a raw material, and finally, in error and try to make this, we launch injection mold resin. We launch fabric material that is soluble, and we now have a film that is. The idea was this: we have to impact pollution. 2.3 million tons are going in the and the idea was how we impact this. Quickly, we know that there's a lot of other solution. There's no one solution that would help, but you have to start reducing, you have to start recycling. But how we can do something? New raw material. Sorry, we take the we have the synthesis of calcium carbide or natural gas. With that, we make acetylene. We need acetylene to make our raw material. With our acetylene, we make the PVA. And with the PVA, we make our new compounds on our formula to make this type of products that we are working on right now. The base is polyvinyl alcohol. Everybody knows about this material. People normally said it's polyacetate, polyvinyl acetate. It's not that. If you check it, it's polyvinyl alcohol. It's the same material that you use for jelly caps of the Tylenol, the one that you swallow in your stomach. You swallow and dissolve in your stomach. That is the raw material that we use. That is the base that we make. We have the certification. If everybody wants, we can send them. We have the ESTM 642 compose home industrial, and we're now applying for BPI in the United States, and I can send everything if you need all the certification that we have.
Thanks very much for that, Christian.
Sorry. We have the patent that is sold in 5 minutes, hot and cold water, do not contaminate the water, and is 100% environment friendly. The product can be processed, can be disposed in a normal landfill, in a compostable landfill, because we only need water to start dissolving. This is some of the product that we have launched. We have a laundry bag, a waste bag, a detergent strip, doggy bags that are flushable, reusable bags, are made of soluble fabric with, we were in an open idea. We reached the short list of this challenge. It was amazing because we were able to understand that there's a lot of people working behind of this. And we were there, and it was amazing. Now we're still working with IDEO, with some clients, and IDEO bring us a lot of clients to work with them.
You're working with some big retail groups as well, are you not, Christian?
What? IDEO?
You're working with some big retail groups as well in Chile, is that right?
Yeah. Yes, that's correct. We're working with some big retailers in the United States, working with some solution for their, and we just started operation in the United States. This is my managed team. Sorry. One of our partners is Kevin Harrington, Steve Mandel. People from the United States are advising us to work with us. That's all.
So I think it's probably the best way of demonstrating how this
video. Yes.
Through the video.
Yes.
Cue up the video so we can actually see the Solubag in action. That would be helpful.
We have now. One is the fabric and the other one is the film. We're making packaging, we're making tissue bags. So see it, please.
Con Frutiza, el maní no solo es rico, también cuida el planeta, porque es el único con un envase hidrosoluble que se disuelve en el agua. Oh my God. Frutiza.
So, Christian, do you want to just talk us through what we just saw there? It was fascinating display demonstration. From our previous conversations, that water can not only just be used to water your plants then once the bag is dissolved in it, but you can also drink from it. Is that correct?
Yes, you can drink the water if you don't have. We only have compostable ink for the materials right now. We are working to find an edible ink because the ink is a compostable, and if you dissolve the water with the ink, you can drink it if you don't put ink in any of our products. But if you put ink, you only can throw it to the garden or to the plant, and no damage will happen.
Having lived in developing countries like India and Cambodia, where you see plastic pollution, not just in all the rivers, but alongside fields, it looks like a very, very feasible solution for countries like that. I'd like to, sorry, go on, Christian.
One of our goals, we know that Solubag is a one-way product because we do not have technology to recycle Solubag materials, because you will put it in the wastebasket, and with the organic juice or the water will start dissolving. And our idea in the future is go circular. And what we want to do is try to take the acetylene from the landfills, try to have the technology, invest in the technology to go to the landfill. You have methane in the landfills, and take out from that natural gas our acetylene and go again and produce our raw material. That is when we will turn circular. That we know that we are one-way product right now. We're working on that because we are one of the solutions to impact.
Thanks. I'd like to get Julie's opinion on that. And Julie, if you've got questions on the production method and the real sustainability impact of that product.
Yeah, there are always watch outs, and this is a new emerging scientific space. So some things I would watch out for is materials like PVA. After they dissolve, what happens to them? Do they persist in the environment? Do they become a really organic compound? PVA is made from natural gas and fossil fuels originally. So I personally wouldn't be happy eating good quantities of it. I understand it's around our pill capsules and maybe doesn't do much damage, but I'm not sure how scalable it is as an edible package solution or drinkable. So a few watch outs for me around that. Great that you're pursuing certifications. Similar with oxo-biodegradables, question marks from my side on once it breaks up into smaller particles, the bag is still made of plastic, and we've added additives that help it degrade in some environments, but not all. So, a lot of those particles could still escape if they end up in the wrong places where there aren't the right bacteria or the right amount of oxygen, or many reasons why we could end up with solutions like oxo-biodegradables ending up leaving small plastic particles in the environment once it's really out in the wild. I know the EU had some questions around materials like that. So it's an emerging scientific field. Keep an eye out and remain curious and ask all the right questions. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. There's an interesting question. I don't know, Christian, do you want to comment on what Julie was just saying about the remnants in the environment?
Yeah, in relation to that, oxo-biodegradable's been around, as I say, for 20 plus years now. And it's been tested by the European Chemicals Agency in Helsinki. and has been proven not to leave microplastics behind in the environment. This is unfortunately part of the misinformation that's out in the public domain at the minute. And that, unfortunately, because it's made with plastic, there's a lot of plastophobia, for want of a better word. And plastic, yes, it has its negatives, but there's a lot of positives to plastic as well compared to other materials. So, for example, plastic is actually made from a byproduct of refining oil. So that fossil fuel has already been made. It's not made for plastic. So it's using something that's been created for something else. So in terms of your renewable energy sources, whilst it's using that refined oil, it's using it because of another purpose. So it's quite positive in that sense, where a number of compostable products, for example, the PLA with PBAT. PBAT's a chemical compound that's made using refined oil. So compostable products, to meet the composting standard, have to compost within a certain time frame. So to make it meet that time frame, a lot of products use PBAT and add this chemical compound in that's made using more refined oil than the manufacturing of plastic. So it unfortunately moves the problem from A to B rather than replacing it or repairing it. So this is where I think there needs to be more of a considered approach to find the right solution for the right product. So whilst I'm an advocate of Oxo biodegradable, I'm not going to sit on any panel and say it is the one right product to replace all solutions. There's going to be elements where compostable will be more desirable product. For example, I'm aware Santiago hasn't been able to speak about Garçon wines yet, but there would be no way that I would suggest to Santiago use Oxo biodegradable as your plastic product, because he would then end up with lots of wine sitting in the cellar that eventually starts leaking. So it wouldn't be the right solution for that. But for a lot of single-use plastic, like food sachets, carrier bags, it's actually the most carbon effective. So I've just got a little screen to share. Will not take very long, but it shows the amount of uses each material actually, how do I minimize that? Each material requires to be carbon neutral. And obviously, oh, is it showing there?
It was. Disappeared.
Technical issues. There we go. So it's obviously not in the design part, but so for example, Oxo biodegradable and standard plastic carrier bags only need to be used once to actually be carbon neutral, whereas the popular jute bag that a lot of shops like Marks and Spencer's, etc., advocate, you need to actually get 4,054 uses out of for it to be carbon neutral. And Morrison's, the national supermarket in the UK, have recently moved to paper bags. Paper bags have their benefits in certain aspects, but for a shopping bag, it has to be reused 24 times, and naturally through that brings issues of deforestation, where there's a solution like Oxo biodegradable that could actually minimize the plastic use or the plastic waste going into the open environment.
How long does it take for an Oxo biodegradable bag to biodegrade?
So for example, the bags that we introduced into AGS, we have a 17 to 24 month time frame on. However, the chemical compound can be altered slightly, and you can expand it to 3 years. So for example, for Corinne with L'Occitane, there'll be probably a number of products that have a use by date. So for products that have a use by date that tend to have a plastic film on the outside, Oxo biodegradable would be, in my opinion, the ideal replacement for the standard single-use plastic, because you've then got something that has that shelf life that matches the shelf life of the product.
We've got a question coming in actually that kind of speaks to this particular conversation, Graham, but indeed I'd like to put this to our other panelists. It's from Ailing Saya Langalan. I hope I pronounced your name right. Plastic packaging, especially recycled and recyclable plastic, can be a form of sustainable packaging if the reuse model is used. Obviously, that's something we've touched on already, because the durability of the plastic allows for the design of a longer lasting product slash packaging. Do you agree? So, I mean, obviously, I think we've kind of touched on that already, but perhaps, Graham, you'd like to add anything more to that?
Absolutely. I think in terms of recycling, there has to be a considered approach to that, but not only just recycling, but taking an approach that what is actually the best solution to the product that we have a problem with at the moment. And not, when we do tenders in airports, we tend to get 3 companies through to the final and then decide which one on its merits of that tender is most suitable for the airport. And we should be taking a similar, I can't speak now, a similar approach to sustainable materials, so that we're ensuring that we actually get the right solution. So it's all good and well, obviously, having these discussions, but humans, as I think I said before, got us into the problem with pollution in the waste. So until a clever scientist essentially creates that silver bullet, we really have to take a considered approach to every single material that's available and make sure that we move to the right one. To give a quick example, I recently launched a new food recipe box company that some of you may have seen on LinkedIn that's connected to me. And our first box 6 weeks ago that we released, it was Plastic City, unfortunately. As a startup company trying to minimize costs, even in 6 weeks, the changes that we've made to reduce the plastic waste, it's considerable. So there's lots of small, simple steps that even startup companies can take to remove that plastic waste. But also it has to be considered. It's not just a flip that we need to move away from plastic. What's the next option? Because essentially you're moving the problem from A to B. It needs to be a considered approach to the overall sustainable solutions.
One of the solutions
I might chirp in here briefly because I've been extremely quiet, and it's really interesting listening to this topic. A lot of interesting things being shared. I think it's important to recognize, though, that our planet is on fire, and we need to make sure that we're offering scalable solutions that can be activated now. Travel retail and the travel space is huge. We're not talking about fringe applications. We're talking about instances where products will be sold in the millions or tens of millions of units. And so to offer solutions that are scalable, but also that have a low green premium. Julia mentioned this earlier, the cost, the supplemental cost to have the sustainable option over the potentially large carbon footprint generating option or the status quo. If those green premiums are too high, it'd be very hard to get the product to be adopted. I think the point that I pick up across everyone is that one size fits all is no longer fit for purpose. And to have packaging that's specific to the application, whether that's the product or the retail channel, is of fundamental importance. For us, it's really important to recognize that wine, like travel, is a very scaled space. And so for us, using entirely recycled PET is the right solution, because there is no other solution in 2021. There was no other solution in 2017 when we were one of the first companies in the world to make a bottle entirely from recycled PET, because it was the right thing to do for sustainability. And also, it's really important that Graham showed carbon footprints, because what we're talking about here ultimately will come back to how are we measuring sustainability. Certainly for Valerie and Shenji's work, well done, and also Julia on your work. Really important, I think, to define sustainability in your work, Valerie. It would be super helpful, I think, for those using your database, that you make your own definition of sustainability and you make it absolutely clear how you're defining that, because that will also navigate some of the other issues. So I guess for me, it's a bit challenging to hear that you know there seems to be a lack of clarity on the comfort of using the right solution that is low carbon footprint, and that's you know why I thought I would chirp in, and because I've stayed very quiet. I should also add, and respectfully, Luke, you used a stat from early 2016, which has been proven to be potentially questionable or misleading, and that is we might have more plastic in the ocean than fish. That was first published by the Ellen MacArthur Foundation in January 2016. It was called into question by the BBC the following month. I believe it's no longer used for the reasons given very clearly by the BBC's fact checkers. So for me, it's, as I say, really great to hear. I'm really happy to hear all of the different solutions, because we cannot have one size fits all anymore. It's become too complex, and our planet is deeply unwell. So we need solutions for specific applications.
I think one of those solutions is what L'Occitane are doing on the refillables fountains. I think you call them, Corinne, is that right? Do you want to tell us a bit about L'Occitane's investments into sustainable packaging?
Yes, sure. I'm very happy to hear many options with Julia, with Christian and Valerie. They're proposing many options. And what I propose now is to show you, sharing my screen, what at L'Occitane we have chosen. It's just a flavor of some solutions, but it goes into 3 strong directions. The first one is to reduce, as I said, we have to close the tap of packaging. So as a packaging engineer, it might be ironic to do so, but my first job is to cut packaging everywhere we can. So you were talking about cello wrap. This is the first thing that we are getting rid at the moment. And within next year, you will not have any cello wrap anymore in our retail shelves.
Can you tell us, and this is a really important issue, because airlines are saying, if you want the products on board, you have to have cello wrap on the perfumes and the cosmetics, the beauty category.
Yeah,
what is the solution?
It depends on the airlines, it depends on the product. So today we have removed 42% of our cello wrap for travel retail. And depending on the evolution of the legislation, if we will not be able to get rid of all the cello wrap, then we will turn it into a compostable one. So this is how we can handle this. But for what is in our retail store, then it's not kits, it's just regular products. By the end of 21, we will not have any cello wrap anymore. This is the same story for spatulas. This is the same story for, plastic trays in our kits. We are turning this plastic into either nothing, such as cello wrap, or molded carton that is much more sustainable than plastic. So we are really cleaning our home. And there is an old tradition at L'Occitane that took place 12 years ago, is to use eco-refill. At the moment, it was really courageous, because eco-refill is really coming from another area. It's not really cosmetic from if we think of this 12 years ago. So it was quite courageous. And by buying an eco-refill instead of a regular bottle, you can save up to 85% of plastic. So it is a huge amount of plastic saved. At the end of 1 year, we can estimate it around 200 tons of plastic, which is avoided. And doing so, you refill your previous bottle. And this is another of our very strong axis, is to consider packaging as a reusable packaging. Not single-use plastic, but your traditional lovely bottle that you keep at home and that you refill again and again. So this is possible thanks to those eco-refill. And you were mentioning, yes, Michael, you were mentioning the fountain, which is our exciting project coming on June in Europe, where you can come up with your aluminum beautiful bottle and fill it with either your shampoo, your shower gel, and so on. And then come again.
Yes, and my question is, so how long has that been in place, and what's the consumer uptake, the customer feedback on that, and the uptake on that, and if you can quantify the proportion of L'Occitane customers using this service?
Oh, you mean the eco refill or the fountain?
The eco refills.
Eco refills, today we can propose 25 different references in eco refill packed in with shade, which is very light. So 25 is a great number of our proposal of different formulas. So they love it, they ask for more. And we can see that the sales are increasing for eco refill. So it shows that people have taken into account the plastic impact and that they are ready today to discover our fountain offer. So stay tuned on June. We want to go really at the end of this idea of putting packaging as a long-term solution. You buy your first time your aluminum bottle, and then you fill it again with one of the 5 different boxes that you can see on the screen. When we cannot do without plastic, then we really try to make it either recyclable or, and of course, coming from a recycled material. This is what we are working on for more than 10 years on our plastic bottles. You can see here some of them. This is shampoos, this is body oil, and so on. And this is all made with recycled PET. Today, we have continuing transforming our plastic bottle, PET plastic bottle, towards recycled PET. And we have 40% of our whole PET tonnage, which is recycled PET. Our target is to get to 100% recycled PET by 2025. And for the components that are really difficult to recycle, because, for example, a pump is really convenient, that is one component that is almost impossible to recycle because it's made of 8-10 different pieces inside. And when you cannot reuse it thanks to the eco refill, then we propose to the consumer to come back with its empties in our store and to use our TerraCycle offer that is a recycling service in store that gives a new life to all those materials. So as you can see, we tend to reduce as much as we can, and it has started from the beginning of L'Occitane's story. It's really part of the culture here. Then we recycle as much as we can, and we react as well. And this is more something that is considering all the countries around the planet, that we want them to consider plastic waste maybe as a resource, so that they change the way they consider plastic, they collect it, sort it, and make something out of it, thanks to this Plastic Odyssey initiative that is really promoting solutions of recycling and recycling plastic around the world. So I know that time is flying by, so I try to be quite quick to reduce, recycle, and react. And I'm ready for questions if you wish.
For the refill, the eco refill and the fountains initiatives, is this something that you've rolled out globally, or just in
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm happy to say that till 2019, 2 years ago, we've started to propose some eco refills in the travel retail scope, so that you can find eco refill in your favorite airports. And it is something that is completely international. For the fountains, we are trying step by step to roll it out first in Europe. So this will be our first step in Europe on June. Then we will go further in Asia 2 months after. And then we will continue by US and Canada for the autumn. But we really want it to be international because our network is international and we want all the customers to find these fountains everywhere. I just have to precise that we will start with 60 stores and then we hope that there will be baby fountains everywhere.
And obviously there's a different level of education and sensitivity to sustainability from region to region. We'll hear more about that in one of the sessions tomorrow. Have you found that there are some regions where they're not so keen and the consumer uptake has not been as dramatic than in other regions, like in Europe, I would imagine more?
Well, we know that in Europe, they are really pushing hard. France especially is really focused on bulk, buying in bulk. So we know that starting by that is quite secure. But we are not waiting for those other countries to be ready. We really want to push and to lead the talk everywhere, and maybe to take some risk, let's say, because here we are cultivating the change. We are cultivating the change for our customers as well. But we really feel they are ready for that. And we are ready to try with them. And we will propose something like 20-25 new stores in Asia with this new way of consuming by buying in bulk your favorite bulk. It's a risk, I agree, Michael, but this is the way we should go. We really are sure of that.
And are you seeing, you mentioned that this is going to be rolled out and already is available in certain airports, our favorite airports. Are there specific airports that you're in discussions with, or retailers for that matter, who have been really pushing this type of initiative with you?
The eco-refills are going to be rolled out in the airports, are already for some of them. We will enlarge the offer. For the fountain, we are thinking about it. We are not ready for the airport yet.
Okay.
Corinne, sorry to jump in there, Michael. I just wanted to ask Corinne about the reaction from consumers to the eco-refills. Has the investment in this been driven very much based on research or feedback that you've had from consumers? How has that changed? Has there been certain areas which consumers are prioritizing? Can you just talk to us a little bit about the relevance of the solutions to consumers?
Well, if we take the inspiration from what's happening on the food industry, we can see that really things are changing, and the legislation is also changing. So we are convinced this is something that we have to take into account. And we have tried 2 years ago a kind of pilot of three machines in 3 stores, 2 in Germany, one in Spain, to try, test, improve our technology of refilling our bottles of shower gels. And we were amazed to see how much our consumers were happy to play the game. They were ready to change, to take their container, to wash it. So it asks them some efforts, but they're really into that. They are ready to go there. And it was also a good pilot to see how our beauty advisor were ready to do so, because the consumer will not be able to use the machine itself. So they have to ask to our beauty advisor some help for refilling. So it's also a lot of work to ask to our beauty advisor a new way of selling completely, that they have to be trained, they have to know how to clean the machine. There are some hygiene norms that they have to fulfill. So it's a lot of efforts for them, but they are really enthusiastic to start playing this initiative with us. I think it is the right moment.
I think it'd be interesting to ask that question to Santiago about the industry uptake for Garçon Wines bottles, because it seems the perfect solution, not just for in-flight where it's reducing weight for the both pouring plus duty-free sales, but also for airports where, if you want to put more SKUs in, it's obviously a better solution for merchandising. Santiago, what's been the uptake for Gas and Wines packaging solutions or wine bottle solutions in travel retail?
Thank you, Michael, for the question. Actually, you're right, because for us, shape innovation is as important as best-in-class material. I guess we're best known for being flat. If anyone can see flat means truly flat, I'll have to run it at that angle because of the background. Yeah, in addition to that being recyclable. Unfortunately, none at the moment in travel retail. We had quite a few projects in the pipeline 2019, but 2020 events basically wiped everything off the agenda for us from a travel space. Primarily, it was for onboard consumption. So basically serving in airlines, because you correctly point out that space and weight are both at a premium in a cabin. And so our solution makes total sense there. We hope that, I guess, the recovery will see once again our sustainable flat bottles in flight. But I also agree with you in terms of the travel retail space makes sense for those reasons you highlighted. I was actually going to ask Corinne a question because I wonder how much of an issue the eco refill is in terms of the impulse purchase in GTR, as you'd have to really be organized, in my view, to take your empty container away with you on holiday and remember to pack it as you're going to fill it as you're going through your travel journey. But I can see how, obviously, if you have a local shop and you're refilling your toiletries, then makes sense. So yeah, but in answer to your question, Michael, I'm looking forward to reinvigorating the projects we have, but I do recognize how massively down, unfortunately, GTR sales have been in this last absolutely disastrous year.
Thanks, Santiago.
Santiago, there is a balance, of course, to be struck between space allocation and profitability for the travel retailers, particularly in these difficult times in the last 12 months. I'd be curious to know what sort of reaction the retailers have had to your innovation, the flat wine bottles, at airports in particular, given the perpetual challenges I mentioned of space allocation. Is it something that you see moving forward in terms of your, I guess, your product pipeline of standardized format? Is it a standardized format at the moment?
It is, and space, as I say, are significant savings. We're getting about twice the amount of product on a pallet. We have e-com cases where we get 2.5 times the amount of product in the cases. We can pack bottles at 2 directions because of the style of the design. So, but we have had no conversations in travel in the last year. I concurrently used to run an OTA, which I had to shut down last year because simply there were no hotel bookings and it was impossible to sustain that business. So I understand, as a startup entrepreneur and as a business owner, I understand how difficult it's been for travel. You know, the data is out there in terms of passenger numbers down by 90% in some airports. You know, the freeze figures, you know, absolutely, you know, really challenging time. And many will know on this call, those who are in MPD or innovative products, how difficult it's been to find time to talk to people about anything that involves MPD innovation, probably a fraction more risk than the status quo. We've done really well in the last year in bricks and mortar retail, you know, in the UK and in the Nordics in terms of volume. But yeah, in travel, unfortunately none, and we've chosen to steer clear of those who are probably just trying to survive versus looking to grow or save money or do anything that's in the innovation space. But I'm confident we'll build back better, and travel will need to focus on building back better in a more sustainable way, as increasingly we hear things like flight shame and take trains and more staycations. You know, travel retail will look different in a world with more staycations. Where will that purchase occur? So exciting times, I believe, for those offering sustainable solutions and those offering innovative solutions in this call, and really great to see major brands like Occitan doing what they're doing to offer a variety of solutions that are more sustainable. In my view, that should be triple bottom line: planet, people, and profit. But I think we need to give planet the unfair advantage because it's so deeply unwell.
question to Graham there about the oxo-biodegradables, and I'll throw that to Christian afterwards as well for the soluble bags. In Dubai duty free are using oxo-biodegradables, if I'm not mistaken, and have been doing for several years now. In the previous session, we were putting the question about collaboration between retailers on finding a solution for an alternative to single-use plastics, but in particular for the STEBs. Is oxy-biodegradable, Graham, and our solu bags, Christian, both viable alternatives to what's currently being used in virgin plastic for STEBs?
Actually, in terms of oxo-biodegradable, I can't speak for solu bags. Unfortunately, it's still something that I don't know much about. Christian will obviously fill in those gaps. But for oxo-biodegradable, absolutely, for me, it's the ideal one for areas that you still require that plastic element. So we spoke about greenwashing early on in the calls, and I think over time, every single one of us on this panel have been greenwashed at some point and believing a solution was by far the best, only to actually delve into the research and understand that actually there's more suitable alternatives. When I launched EnviroPoint and was looking at solutions to replace the airport liquid bag, I was looking at a compostable one that was PLA with PBAT. It was a cornstarch based solution. And I shared that with the Civil Aviation Authority, and they came back and said, absolutely not. It's translucent. It's not transparent. It must be transparent. And that's where my research then continued, and I found the oxo-biodegradable and started researching more into that, because you've got the benefit of plastic where it's completely transparent, and the same with those bags that you mentioned. It's one of the things we have been discussing, but like you mentioned, in Dubai, throughout the whole of the UAE, there's actually legislation that states that all single-use plastic must be oxo-biodegradable. It's just unfortunate that other territories haven't taken up similar approaches, and it's then became quite political in Europe, and a lot of misinformation ended up being relayed, but hopefully I'll be able to assist in that knowledge.
So the Christian, for clarity, I'm not sure if you're aware, but the STEB I referred to is the seal tamper evident bag. It's the security bags that when you're buying your liquor in a duty-free shop, it has to be put in, not just the duty-free bag, but directly and then into the STEB, what we call a STEB bag. It's ICAO certified. And so there are certified suppliers that ICAO have certified around the world. And so I think we discussed this before, either with you or Peter. And they're being used at all airports around the world for security issues. They need to be heavy duty, obviously, to carry 2-3 liquor bottles. Is that something that the solu bag can replace? You have to unmute yourself. We can't hear you. You have to unmute yourself.
Sorry. The transparency is something that we work when we start, because everybody have, like Grim said, everybody wants a bag that it must be transparent in bread, in all the different products. And we have to work with, when we start, we only have a little like transparent, like, how you said it? It was a little bit, you cannot see like this. It was 3 or 4 times back of this transparency. We work on this. We're making some delivery envelopes that are performing well, that work well. You can be able to flashable. We're making bubble wrap. You will wave every time Amazon send you a packet, you will have all the bubble wrap inside. You can be able to flashable. All this type of solution we are making, because
heavy duty though. Can you put 2 or 3 bottles of liquor in
yes, there? we're making bags for dog food and for salmon food, sacks of 25 kilograms. Depends on the microns of the bag and depends on the use that we want to do it. But our material work the same as polyethylene in strength and in the machinery.
A couple of questions coming in.
We
from
should
the
have lighter bottles too, Michael, for those spirits, because they're going to create unnecessary carbon footprint, and nobody wants to carry heavy breakable packaging bottles through their travel.
The solution is to pass on wines bottles in the Solubag or the oxy-biodegradable STEB bags. But a couple of questions came in, interestingly, about the Solubags, Christian, which pertaining to the fact that if you've got a leakage in the bag, or let's say if it's raining, what happens to the bag? Is it not just going to dissolve in your hands and smash the bottles on the floor?
Well, depends on the client. We can set up the temperature to start the dissolving in 10 degrees Celsius to 30 degrees Celsius or 85 degrees Celsius. Depends on what do you want. If you have a bag that is set up at 10 degrees and start raining, the bag will get dissolved in your hand. That's correct. But it will depend on the use of the product. If you have a bread with this material, you normally go home with the bread, you use the bread, and then you can flashable if you want. You are not, all the packaging, like this one, the one that you see in the video, this one is, it's nuts in a Solubag material. You can eat it, and then you can flashable, or throw it to the garbage. If these go to the landfill, normal or a compostable will get dissolved also. You have the percolate liquids there. That's all.
We've got to wrap up now, Christian, but we definitely will put you in touch with our friends from the trade associations at the Duty Free World Council, who are collaborating with all the other regional trade associations. And many years ago, when STEB bags came into use and to force on a compulsory basis at all airports, we're negotiating the ETRC in particular with ICAO. And we need to have, whether it's oxo-biodegradable or soluble, we need to have more environmental friendly solution to these steps. So there's definitely a next step there to pursue. Luke, over to you to do your wrap up.
Thank you very much, Michael. I think we're just about out of time. We are very much out of time. I'd like to offer the last word to all our panelists, but unfortunately, I think that's not possible at this point. Look, all there is left to say is thank you for all your contributions. Thank you for your research, your informed, a very considered commentary on a number of topics. We have covered a lot of ground. There's unfortunately a lot more ground to cover that we run out of time. But look, thank you once again. Don't forget to tune in for our Travel Retail Sustainability Week program tomorrow, day 3. We've got a really, really exciting series of sessions, and of course our next sustainability pitch session, and we'll be looking at some more great examples, I'm sure, of eco-conscious ingenuity. Join us for that. I'd like to take this opportunity as well, again, to thank all our session sponsors, Ariante International, Brown-Forman, Coty, Goerland, Mondelez, and Nestle, and indeed all our premium partners. Keep the conversation going using hashtag TR Sustainability Week. React to any of the comments or discussions that you've been particularly interested in or excited to react on today. We very much value your feedback and commentary. So keep the conversation going. Thank you very much to my co-moderator, Michael Barrett, and of course, all our panelists today, Graham, Kareem, Christian, Santiago, Chenji, Valerie, and Julia. Take care, stay well, and see you soon.
Thanks very much,
Bye.
Luke. And goodbye to you all, and have a great evening.